Well, hello everybody and welcome to another video tutorial. My name is Peter Drakulic, and in this video tutorial I want to show you how you can model a sponge the easy way. So let's go ahead and get started. First of all, here we are presented with a basic default Blender scene, and let's select our cube and tap into edit mode, and having selected all the faces, all the vertices, you want to scale them along the z-axis by pressing SZ. Somewhat, perhaps along the x-axis by pressing SX. Alright, something like so. Alright, and now you want to tab out edit mode and either go up here to the modifiers tab and add the modifier subdivision surface modifier, or equally you can press Ctrl+2. And so you can add a subdivision surface of level 2 modifier to our cube. Alright, let's first go of course and smooth out the shading from up here. Okay, so we have a nice smooth shape. And now let's tab into edit mode and press Ctrl R, and let's go ahead add some loop cuts to our sponge. So we basically want to give it the nice, shape with the smooth corners of a sponge. Alright, and now let's add one more loop cut just in the middle of our sponge. And for doing so, you want to first left click, alright, and then right click, right mouse click, and you have entered a loop cut just in the middle of our sponge. Now, having this loop cut selected, you want to scale it along the x-axis somewhat. So we have something like this. Again, you might want to scale it along the z-axis only by pressing SZ. It's up to you to find the right shape for your sponge. Okay, it's okay with the basic shape of the sponge, but now what we want to do is to add those details, those indentations here, whatever, those the details on the surface of the sponge. Alright, so for this purpose we're going to be creating a bump map, and we're going to be using for creating the bump map GIMP. Alright, and so yeah, let's go and switch over to GIMP. So here we are in GIMP, and we want to create a very basic new document, new background, white background. So go up here to the file, new, alright, select new, or equally you can press the Ctrl N shortcut. So, and you are presented with a pop-up dialog here, and you can see we have set the width and height dimensions to 1024 by 1024. It's okay for our purpose. So click OK, and we have created this very basic, this very basic white background. Now we want to head over to the Windows, and if it is not opened by default up here, alright, in those tabs here, you can always go to the Windows dockable dialogs and select tool presets. Alright, so you are presented with a tool preset dialog, which is a panel here, a tab here, which contains, it lists the tools presets for many of the tools you can find up here in the toolbox. So you want to go and head over to something that it writes splatters, this one here. So this is a preset for the brush tool, the paintbrush tool. So I go ahead, and you can see from the icon here that it is the icon of this paintbrush tool, and I'm going ahead and I'm selecting the splatters tool, and you can see that the cursor has changed into small little circles here. Now I want to start painting, having my default colors of course enabled, and as you can see, it paints pretty much something like the pattern of the holes of the sponge. Okay, of course you can play around with the size of this tool here, of the brush here, so you can bump up the size a little bit and add some more some bigger holes here. Right, and when you're happy with the result, just in case, you can always go ahead into the filters menu, and in order to make this seamless, go to the map here, sub menu, and select the filter named make seamless. So now we have made seamless this. Of course, this is not something required from you to do, but it's nice to know that all the edges here around are seamless. So let's now go and go to the file menu when we're happy with the result and save it, but we won't save it as a GIMP file. Instead, we're going to export it. All right, so go here to the export option, and I want to give it the name, let's say Spons Bomb map. All right, of course it's going to be a PNG image, so let's go ahead and press enter. A second pop-up dialog pop-ups, and I want to say okay to this as well. And now I have saved my my bump texture. Now let's switch over to Blender. You can see here it is our spawns waiting here. Alright, and I want to apply the bump texture to my spawns. You have a couple of ways for doing so. First of all, you want to, since we are going to be working with the Cycles render engine, you want to change from over here, you want to switch over to Cycles render. Alright, now let's move this divider line here and make some more room here. And let's, by the way, enable the screencast add-on, so you can see better what kind of shortcuts I'm pressing. So alright, so with the screencast add-on enabled, so I'm selecting my my spawns, and I want to apply to it a basic material to this spawns. So let's head over to this sphere icon over here, and I want to apply a Cycles material to this spawns. For this purpose, I want to enable to make sure that the use nodes option is enabled, and for the moment it is a simple diffuse material. Of course, I want to make it something more more advanced, so let's go ahead and click on this little triangle over here on the top right corner here, and let's split the 3D view and bring a node editor window here. Alright, so here you can see if you pressed this sphere icon, you are presented with the material for the spawns object here, and it is the nice diffuse plain diffuse color. I want to click on this color and select something like, I don't know, something color something like so. Alright, and of course I don't want this to be just a plain diffuse color. I want to add by pressing Shift A, I want to add a second shader, which is going to be a glossy shader. Alright, let's bring this here as well, and let's go ahead and press Shift Tab to maximize the window. I want also to make the color of the glossy material to be the same as the diffuse material. So all I want to do is to go ahead, click on this color chip here, and select this eyedropper icon and click on this color. So I have copied essentially the color of the diffuse to the glossy. Now I want to add also a mix shader, so Shift A, add the mix shader, which is going to be the one that is going to be mixing together the two shaders, and I want to connect the output socket to the one input socket of the mix shader, and the other output socket, excuse me, to the input socket of the shader, and this to the surface. So now I want to also you can see I have mixed those two materials together. Alright, I want to use as a mixing factor for the mixing of those materials another node, which is going to be input layer weight node. Alright, and I want to select the facing output of this node to be the mixing factor to be controlling the mixing factor of the mix shader of those two materials here. So let's go ahead and have a look at the rendered view. So I'm switching from over here to the rendered view, and you can see we have this nice glossiness. Most of the spawns used to have this some kind of glossiness on their surface. So I can always go here to the blend factor here, and by scrubbing the slider I can, as you can see, make this either bump up the glossiness or reduce the glossy effect. So somewhere here I guess it's going to be okay. When you are happy with the result, Alright, we can keep the material as it is for the moment. We have the basic surface quality of our material. Of course, it would be a nice idea to change the lamp from over here, from the outliner, from a point lamp to a sun lamp, and so you have a better idea of how this would look like. Let's make also the shadows a little bit sharper of our sun lamp, somewhere here, and of course check the use nodes option, let's say. Alright. Now we have the basic material, but we don't have any texture applied to it. Well, we can use our texture, our pre-made texture we made in GIMP for this purpose. So let's go ahead and bring this texture in. So you have a couple of ways for doing so. Have selected your sponge, all right? You want to either go over here to the materials tab, and you want to click on this displacement tab here, and since we want this texture to be controlling the displacement, and I can click in the default here where it writes default. I want to change this into an image texture from this texture options list here, this column here. Okay, so switch over to the image texture. So now Blender is expecting an image to be controlling the bump, and I can select open image, and from the list of options I have here, from the directory, I want to head over to my directory and select the sponge bump open image. Alright, so you can see this kind of effect here. Of course, now you can see also in the node editor this image texture has been added, and I could cut this link. As you can see, immediately it updates here. I can delete this image texture node here, and the second way you have to add an image texture to your material is to go ahead and directly in the node editor and add a texture, image texture. Again, select the from the list the sponge bump PNG and make the color output. Link this to the to the displacement, directly into the displacement of your material. All right. Now we have not specified the texture coordinates, the projection type for our bump map, and this is what we're going to do in just a while. Again, you have two ways for doing so. Where it writes down here vector, you can see this. If you go to the displacement tab, you can click on this default and you can select from the available options UV projection method. You can select camera projection method, window reflection, and so on, so forth. For our purpose, of course, we could use UV, but instead we are going to be using the object's coordinates for projection. Again, you can see that immediately in the node editor, a texture coordinate node has been added, which has the object output linked to the vector input of our image texture. Of course, we are not happy with the result, because you can see on the sides we have this distorted, distorted bump here. Well, we can fix this in just a while by just go ahead. Let's switch over to the render view, of course, and by go over here where it is the image texture and select from the projection type from flat, switch over to box. So now you can see you have a nice smooth and evenly distributed, let's maximize the window a little bit, evenly distributed projection. It's really nice. Of course, you can play always with the blend. If you have distorted, if your texture is distorted around the edges, you can use the blend factor in order to minimize this distortion. In our case, this is not the case though. Well, this is one way you have for projecting a texture on a simple object like a sponge. But let me show you another way, which has to do with the UVs of our object. So let's make some room or space here and select and bring another panel here and change this into a UV image editor. And now I want to tab into edit mode, have selected my sponge always, and I want to to create a new image using texture paint this time? Well, first you have, of course, to select all the faces of your spawns and unwrap them, and we could use the Smart UV Project option from the pop-up list and select Smart UV Project and click OK, and here you have unwrapped your spawns. Of course, this time now, if you have your UVs here, you want to make sure that having selected all of them inside the UV image editor, you want to make sure that they are not overlapping each other. So first press Ctrl A to average the islands, the size of the islands, and then Ctrl P to rearrange them automatically in such a way that they won't overlap each other. This is very, very important, right? So now, next thing we want to do is to change the type of the projection here of the texture coordinate, space here, from object to UV. So select in the node editor the UV output this time and link this into the vector output of the image texture. Now you have UVs to be controlling the how the texture is going to look like. So let's switch over to the rendered mode, and you can see that we have this angle projection, and the reason for that is that we have set the projection type to box. Always when you are working with the UVs, you want to set this not to box but to flat instead. So let's bring this back to flat. So now you have a rather nice projection based on the UVs. Okay, of course we have some distortion here. So in that case there where you are not very happy with the projection method, you want to perhaps paint directly using texture paint on the surface of the spawns. That's why I'm going to create a new map for the spawns. Switch over to the solid mode first, tab into edit mode, and now I want to create a new image here, and the new image is going to be my spawns bomb number 2. Alright, we want to give it, from this color chip here, a white color, and I want to click OK. So now this new map, this new plain white image has been assigned to this spawns object, as you can see. All I need to do now is to go ahead and paint with texture paint onto the spawns using my spawns bump that I had made before. We made this before in the GIMP, so inside GIMP. So I'm heading over to the texture tab here, and I want to click on this type of image texture, and I want to assign a new texture for painting, texture painting on the spawns. First of all, though, I want to switch over to the texture paint here. All right, and immediately you can see I'm presented with the text draw option for my from the texture here, tab. So click on that, click new, and from the list of types you want to select image or movie, and of course from the selector here I want to set this to spawns bump, the one that I had made before in the GIMP, if you remember. Alright, and now since I have switched over to the texture paint menu, let's make some space here by rearranging the panels. Let's close this UV panel here, and you can see that I have the option here, some options here in the texture paint menu. I want to head over to the texture, and you can see it has already selected this by default, but you can close this always, and you want to go here and reassign this anyways. Second thing I want to do is to bump up the strength of my brush to all the way up to 1, and I want to start painting now. Of course nothing will happen actually because I haven't yet assigned this in the rendered view. If you go to the rendered view, nothing is going to happen because you have to save first your newly painted bump map. Alright, so let's switch over to the solid mode first. You can see that very easily I can start painting on my spawns, and the nice thing here is that I can always play with the size by pressing F. I can play with the size of the spawns of the brush, and I can give a different I can give different effect on the surface of my spawns. Well, you have to be very careful though, because here on the edges some distortion might occur if you want always to project paint looking from a from a perpendicular direction anyways. And let's play a little bit with the side here and take pay special attention for any distortion might occur here on the corners. Especially you want this to be alright as much as it gets, not so distorted. You want to have it alright, anyways, something like so. Alright, so when you are happy with the result, you want to go ahead and let's bring my UV window here. You want to go ahead and tab edit mode, of course select first, go first to the object mode, tab edit mode. You can see this is our painted version of our bump map. I want to save this image using the save as image option here, and I want to head over to my learning folder, and I want to save this as Spawns Bump 2 PNG, save as image. Now that my image is saved and has been saved, and I can see now also in my node editor that I have this Spawns Bump number 2 applied to my spawns. You can see that if you switch over to the rendered view, you have this nice hand painted version of our texture. Well, of course you might not be very happy with the result. In that case there, you can always switch to the object coordinate system, and you can always connect the object, the first method. I would go for the object this time. I think it's much more good looking in our case, and you can see that also you have to change the projection method from flat to box. This is very, very important. Alright, and of course you want to change the texture to the Spawns Bump, the initial texture, so you have a nice some nice holes here on the spawns. Well, if you are not happy with the result, actually you can you want to scale up or down those holes here perhaps, then you want to add a Shift A vector mapping node here. Alright, so, and you want to play a little bit with the scale, and the rule here is that if you set the number for the scale to less than 1, then the holes are going to be bigger. Alright, so let's say I wanted this to make this 0.3, and I want this to set this, the X to 0.3. Enter. You can see some distortion taking effect, and the Y also to 0.3, so keep them in proportion, and you can see that our holes have become bigger. But if you want them to be smaller, you can type a number bigger than 1, 0.4 for example, tab 0.4, and our holes have become bigger. Let's say that for our purpose we're happy with the default 1:1 ratio for the X and Y scaling. Alright, now since I think we are happy with the texture of our spawn bob, let's switch over to the solid mode. Let's go ahead and save first, and I want to give it some dynamic behavior, meaning that I want to make it start behaving like a real world spawns. Alright, let's first close some windows here, and I want to Shift A, add a mesh plane, scale it up, our plane, quite a bit, and this is going to be our surface where this spawns is going to be is going to be colliding with the surface, sort of. Alright, and let's press Ctrl A, apply the scale. Now select our spawns and bring it somewhere here on top of, somewhere up here. And I want perhaps to tab into that mode and rotate all the faces along the x-axis a little bit. Give it some rotation of some sort, alright? Okay, and now let's look through our camera, alright? And I want to make my camera to start to have a track to constraint. And so select your camera, shift select your spawns and press Ctrl T and add the track to constraint to your camera. So now I want to make my spawns start moving by going ahead and making it and adding to it a soft body a modifier. So add to this a soft body modifier by going up here to the physics tab, soft body, and of course now if you go ahead and play the animation by pressing Alt A, you're going to see that nothing really happens in the realistic way, because the spawns is going to be vibrating around the fixed point in space, which is not what we want. And this is because we have the soft body goal enabled here, and I don't want any fixed points, so I don't want so go ahead down here and uncheck the soft body goal. We don't want this to be vibrating like if some ghostly fixed points were around. So now if you play the animation, you can see at least it's moving downwards, it's dropping down, whatever, in a realistic way. Of course it doesn't collide with the plane, and the reason for that is that the plane must have a collision property assigned to it. And so go ahead, having selected the plane, to the physics tab and add the collision property to your plane. Now it's going to be interacting with the spawns, as you are going to see if I play the animation. Wow, yeah, you can see that our spawns is looking like I don't know, it's pretty weird the way it behaved, and that's why I want to play a little bit with the soft body parameters here for the spawns. Select the spawns and go to the soft body, and where it writes soft body edges, and you want to play with three factors here: the pull springs, the push springs factor, and the bending factor. And by playing around, I found that if you add a 0.75 value for the pull and the 0.3 value for the push springs value, and also you want to set the bending to something like 2, then you are going to have a pretty realistic behaving spawns. As you can see, alright, our spawns is now behaving much more realistically, I would say. Alright, and let's go ahead and see this again once more. Alright, nice. Of course you can play around and you can find your own preferences. It's not, yeah, it's a good thing to experiment all the time, and but for our purpose I think it's behaving really nice. And let's take let's have a render somewhere here. Alright, through our camera you can see our spawns is nicely being deformed, whatever. Alright, and so you can go ahead and have your spawns nicely looking and nicely and realistically behaving through these using these techniques. So that was our tutorial for today. I hope you enjoyed it and you learned something from this. If you like this, don't forget to subscribe. See you next time, hopefully soon, with another hopefully interesting tutorial and topic. Until then, have fun and goodbye.